Welcome back. So in this video we'll be learning about ASP.NET Core MVC login or authentication using Entity Framework Core DB first approach. In this video we'll learn this in total 4 steps. First one is creating DB with the tables and store procedure, required DB objects, so preparing database. Then second one is configure login or authentication schemas. So in startup.cs file will be configuring authentication schema, cookie authentication schema. In the third step, we will be generating Entity Framework Core DB context for the DB we have created in step 1. Okay. Then fourth step is implementing login functionality. With the fourth step, we'll be completing this video. Okay. For this, we need to install these 3 packages. Before moving on, let's create a project first. ASP.NET Core Web Application, ASP.NET Core Web Application. Next, so I have given my name cookie based login MVC. Create. I want to create MVC application model view controller. So then create. So select web application model view controller, then unselect configure for HTTPS for now, then click on create button. So make sure that you have selected latest ASP.NET Core 3.1 .NET Core. Create. Project got created. So you know about MVC model view controllers. We got 3 folders for 3 different components. We got a home controller by default, then models, error model, use for home controller, so index view privacy. I'm running it. Here we have a home, then privacy. So 2 tabs. We will be adding authorize attribute for this privacy. Then this will be accessible only when user is logged in. Then we'll implement a login. So for this, let's implement a database first. This is my database SQL demo, and this is my table, user table, and this is my stored procedure. So let me open this stored procedure. Okay, simply this is my database table, user table. So ID, username, password, and this is the data I'm having. So I have one record, Nehant World. Nehant is a username, World is a password. And this is my stored procedure, get user by username, and it is taking one parameter as input, username. It is getting a record based on a input username. So it will gives you the record matching with the given user ID. Okay. So this is a simple stored procedure, and this is a simple user table. Okay. Database design is done. Then, so we need to install the 3 packages. So database designing is done. So Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. So to install the packages, right click on your project, then go to, so this is running, so stop it, stop your project if it is running. Right click on your project, click on manage nugget packages, click on manage nugget packages. So go to browse, and here type Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. Yes. So Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. This is the first one. So I'm selecting it and installing it. Okay. Click on accept. I accept. So installation is done. Then what's the next one? Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.Tools. Tools. Okay, install this one also. Installing. Click on accept. Installation is finished. Then the next one, entity framework core.sql server.design. Microsoft.entity framework core.sql server.design. Install it. Click on accept. Okay, installation is completed. So if you go to install the tab, you can see the three installed: SQL Server, SQL Server.design, .tools. So we have installed these three packages. So package installation is done. Okay. So if the package installation is done, then we need to run this command to generate DB context. Okay, SQL Server DB context. Let's do it now. Go to package manager. Okay, paste that command here, scaffold command. Okay, paste that command and modify your database credentials details like server name, database name, user ID and password, and press enter. So it will build succeeded. Then it has generated SQL demo.context. So it has generated DB context. So this is my local server and SQL demo is my database name. So then in the database we have created a table and a stored procedure. So table got generated in DB context, but we need to do it manually for stored procedure. For that, let's create a partial class. So I have created a partial class. Okay, here we will add a stored procedure code. So this is the stored procedure code. So I have added all my working code snippets in the toolbox. So if I double click on this particular item, then code will be inserted here. So I have clicked SP call and I got a stored procedure call. So in the partial class, this is my custom class. When you auto generate next time, this will not be modified. The original one will be modified because these two are partial classes. When compilation happened, both will be a single class. At runtime, there is only one class available. If you want to call stored procedure using entity framework, so you need to call that on top of the user the particular table. So I want to get a user using stored procedure. So user dot from SQL raw. So there is a method, inbuilt method from SQL raw. So I'm calling execute stored procedure with a parameter. So I'm preparing simple SQL parameter with the data, username data, then DB null value. If username is empty, then passing null. So I'm marking it as an enumerable, then reading the first record. If there are no records, it will return null value. Okay, this is a stored procedure call. We are done generating database. We are done creating database, creating DB and stored procedure done. Generating entity framework group DB context. First point and third points are done. Let's do the second point. So here, this is my startup.cs file. Here, after adding controllers with views, so I want to add my authentication configuration. So I took it from my toolbox. Sorry. Okay. This is my schema. Then based on that my schema name I have created, I have added a authentication, then added cookie based authentication. This is my login path, authentication slash login. Then this is my denied path. Okay, this is my cookie based authentication configuration. So configuration is done. Then go to home controller. So add authorize. I want to add authorize for this privacy view. So then add a controller, authentication controller. So authentication controller. So I want to create a login model. This login model simply having a username, string, password. So I have a username and password. I'm adding a namespace, and this one is a post call, HTTP post. So this is a get call, this is a post call. Okay, return view. So I have added authentication controller, then added a method login and added a post method. This one is get and post. So I'm adding a view. So right click and add view, razor view, add. So yes, okay. So added view, in views authentication folder added, login view added. So authentication slash login startup authentication. Okay, so my login path is ready now. So this is my login and here is a sample login page. Okay, and let's run it now. So home page is working fine. If you click on privacy, see it is not displaying contents of privacy. So rather it is going to login page. See, it is added a return URL home privacy. When login is successful, then it will go to privacy tab. So our configuration is working fine. Let's implement. So configure login authenticate schema is done. So first, second, third points are done. Let's implement fourth point. This is my login view modified. So login model, username and password. Let me add required here. So username is required. Stop it. Password also required. So data type added, then added, and let's add a display name. So model is added with the required validation, then display name and data type is a password. So login view also updated with a validation summary. So this is simple login view. So having a validation summary and label for username and text box for username and validation message. Label for password, text box for password and validation message. Simple. Okay, then go to here, then in my view I have added a complete post method. This is complete post method. So this is login model and the model dot is valid and so return URL. So validate user method needs to be added. So in this method we are validating it. So see here, we have created context for a SQL demo context. Then in the login method, first we are validating model state. If the model state is valid, then we are allowing for further operations. Otherwise, we are simply returning the same. Okay, then going inside, then validate user. So we are passing the model here. So let's go to validate user method. So that's below here. So here we are getting user from database. We have written a database call. So we are passing username here. Okay. So with the help of username, we are getting the user. So we have created stored procedure with username. Okay. So here we are calling that stored procedure. Okay. So we'll get the user. then user data, if the user data id is greater than 0, then user is available. Then going inside and checking user dot username is equal to model dot username and password is equal to model dot password. If both are matching, then returning true, valid user, otherwise returning false, invalid user. Okay. Okay, so validation is done. If the user is valid user, let's go inside, then creating claims. So these claims will be available in the cookie we are going to create. So here, so we are adding two claims. One is a username to identify the user, and the another claim is a role. So member is just a member, not admin or any kind. So we are having two claims, user and role. I'm adding username and a member, and using http context dot sign in async. We are doing a sign in mechanism using http context dot sign in async. For that, we are passing claims principal with the claims identity parameter. So this claims identity is created with our claims. We have created claims here, right? So with these claims, this identity will be created. So after login, if you want to read username, logged in username, so using this identity, it will return us the username we have added in claims. So it will generate cookies. So this is the step. We are doing a sign in mechanism. Then sign in is done. Then URL dot is local URL of a return URL. So previously we have seen that URL is having a return URL. So if you are redirected from somewhere, then after login you need to return back there, right? So that's what this return URL. If there are no return URL, simply return to default URL, that is home URL. Okay. So if the model state is invalid, we are showing invalid login credentials mechanism. So this is a login mechanism done. So I'm running it. Okay, clicking on home, working fine as there is no authorized attribute for home. We have added authorized attribute for privacy. So it will go to login. Yeah, it is redirected to login. So because we have added authorized attribute for privacy. Where is that home controller? Here it is. See, we have added authorized attribute for privacy. That's why it went to login screen. So I don't want to enter anything and I'm clicking on login. So it is asking the username field is required, the password field is required. This is asking it because we have added required attribute in the model. Because of this required attribute, it is asking it. Okay, I'm entering the username as Nehan and leaving password as empty. Clicking on login. It is asking password is mandatory, and I'm entering random password. Clicking on login, and it is saying invalid login credentials because I have entered wrong password. Now I am entering correct password. So I have entered correct password, clicking on login. So it did logged in. Now, okay, let's debug it. Neha world. Yeah, so it has logged in, but while doing authorization it is failing. So here we need to mention the schema name, because in the startup.cs we have mentioned this is my cookie schema, and we have added authentication for this cookie schema. But in authorize we are not saying what is the schema. So there can be multiple schemas. That's why we need to mention schema name here. I'm stopping it and adding schema name. Authentication schema equal to startup dot cookie schema. Okay, now it will work. So the Chrome is already logged in. Let's see, because cookie is there. See, it is already logged in. So now we have added cookie schema. That's why it is able to get the login accounts. Let's modify privacy view bit. And also let's add a logout mechanism. Authentication, let me add a logout one. So here context dot sign out, no sign out as well. Then redirect to home page. If you want to redirect to login page, you can do that. So redirect to login page. Let's add logout. Where is this layout? Share one. Authentication controller logout. So I added logout functionality also. I simply added logout action method. Then HTTP context dot sign out async will do sign out of a current logged in user, then redirecting to login page. Running it. See, it is already logged in, and clicking on logout. So it's logged out and went back to login. Then clicking on privacy again, it's asking for login, and the home screen is accessible and privacy is not accessible as authorized attribute is there. Then I'm logging in. Click on login. So successfully logged in. So privacy tab is accessible. Okay. Then clicking on logout, going to login page again. So this is how login mechanism works. So here we have configured login authorization mechanism, cookie authentication mechanism. Then we have created a user table, username and password, and we have a record Nehant and world on record, and we have created a SP. Okay, this SP will get us a user based on user with a username. Then we have added a authentication controller. So this is a login action method, and this is a login post action method. So here if model state is valid, we are validating the user. So in this validation, we are getting a user from database using Entity Framework core. So we have defined a method to get a user from database using stored procedure. This is how we'll execute stored procedure using Entity Framework. So then we are comparing username and password. If it is correct, then returning true, else false. Then we are creating claims and signing in. Then if there is any return URL, redirecting, else redirecting to home. Then we are signing out and redirecting to login. That's it. So this is how we can implement a login mechanism in ASP.NET Core MVC. ASP.NET Core MVC using Entity Framework Core DB first approach.